Hello everyone, today we're at Canyonlands National Park and we're going to explore a mystery. This is the Upheaval Dome Trail in its entirety. I'm going to try to commentate the whole way through. This hike is going to take us about 37 minutes. And my name is Blake and this is Walk the Parks. So basically there's three purposes to these videos that I can think of. Tell me more if you have any. The first would be if you're planning on going here, you can kind of check things out before you go, right? I'm a personally big fan of this. I like to do some research, as much research as I can. There's not too much stuff like this that I could find anyway. So here we go. I provide you with the entire hike. So second, you could, if you're on the treadmill or on a gym machine or just want something in the background, you could play these videos. You could mute me. You could listen to me. You could do whatever you want. Because you can be free during this video for sure. But anyway, if you want to have something on in the background when you're at the gym or something like that, potentially a good idea. Maybe check that out. And last but not least, would be accessibility. There's probably a lot of people in the world that for whatever reason won't or can't come to beautiful southern Utah and explore Canyonlands National Park. This video is for you. You can come and check it out. I think this gives a pretty good impression of what this trail is like. First off, I'm just going to say I remember hiking this trail and I remember I was going pretty fast. So because of that, just keep in mind that I tend to be a faster hiker, so I wouldn't use the 37 minutes as a guideline. The National Park Service is about an hour and a half round trip. So that's for this from the second overlook, like to and from the second overlook. All right, so here we go. You can tell the trail's pretty well marked, but also like double tracked, like which one is the trail? I don't know. So there's that. But this trail is very heavily used and pretty well marked for most of the way. Although that said, I feel like it's a little bit easy to get confused as well. But that's kind of true of all hikes in this area. Just the slick rock by itself is a little bit challenging sometimes to figure out where you're going, because it's not like this. There's a defined trail. Obviously, there's built steps and things like that. But a lot of times when you're just on straight slick rock, it's like, where do you go, right? Because there's not really a defined trail. So that's another thing that might kind of add a little bit of time to this hike. All right, so the National Park Service on their website, they say 2 short but steep hikes lead to overlooks of a spectacular and colorful geologic feature, Upheaval Dome. And there's also the Syncline Trail. So there is a big loop that loops around the entire Upheaval Dome, but they recommend that is much more challenging. So it's a lot more strenuous hikes, and that is not what we are doing. We are doing the Upheaval Dome Overlooks Trail. So keep that in mind. I think I actually have done half of the what is the other trail called? The Syncline Trail. Sorry about that. I have done half of that one time. It was pretty cool though. You immediately, once you go off the main trails, it immediately ups itself a notch. So if you're like that type of person and this sounds kind of not challenging enough, then for sure look that one up and go do it. All right. So if we just wanted to go to the Upheaval Dome first overlook, the round trip distance is 0.6 of a mile or 1 kilometer. Not too bad. It's approximately an hour, and there's approximately 115 feet of elevation gain. It's ranked as moderate for a short but steep trail. Leads to a clearer view into Upheaval Dome. Exhibits at the end of the trail discuss this unique geologic feature. So let's just talk about that for a minute. So the Upheaval Dome, and I like this one. I like when there's, a lot of times we think in our modern society that we have a lot of stuff figured out, and we do. I'm able to film this whole hike, upload it so you guys can check it out. You're able to watch it. We're able to fly on planes to get here, et cetera, et cetera. We live in a modern world. But Upheaval Dome is a mystery. And this is one of the signs that's in the park here. So I'm just going to read this to you. Upheaval Dome is unique. The rock layers below you are fractured and tilted, forming a circular depression more than 2 miles wide. How did it form? Scientists proposed 2 potential causes: a salt dome that cracked and tilted the rock over time, or a violent meteorite impact that instantly fractured the rock. Recent findings support the meteorite hypothesis, but questions remain. With more research, we may solve the mystery of this crater and others on our planet. So, I think that's pretty cool. We have no idea what happened here with the Upheaval Dome, but two theories, possibly a meteorite. So pretty cool. I guess I wouldn't want a meteorite of this size. I wonder how big a meteorite has to be to make this kind of impact. I mean, is it more like it's traveling at such a high speed that it kind of makes a huge area and huge impact, or is it more like just the size of it, right? I don't know. So really enjoyed hiking this day. I was really lucky that for a lot of the days I was in Canyonlands National Park because I got cloud cover. One of the things you definitely need to be careful of is the sun in this area. So for two reasons. Number one, it can be really hot. I would recommend coming here either spring or fall. Summer can be kind of torturous and borderline dangerous. Just make sure to bring enough water and bring salt, and don't overdo it, because you have to, sometimes if you have to go out, you have to make it all the way back to your vehicle. So keep that in mind. The sun is just relentless here. Additionally, sunscreen. I like to wear like a full sun hoodie and a hat and sunglasses. I usually wear pants and sun gloves too, but I might take it to the extreme. You might be a little bit more comfortable in something else, but just try to keep yourself protected. I really like sun hoodies. Those seem to be gaining the most popularity too, which is nice because it really is the best sun protection that I've been able to find anyway. So here we are, and I think we're actually almost to the first overlook. Man, you know, the Park Service website said this is only 115 feet of elevation change, but man, I just having memory back to this, I I was huffing and puffing, so mileage may vary on this. It's kind of like, oh, it's only 115 feet. All right, so now in the background you could just see a couple of people. You can kind of see a couple people now too. They are at that first overlook. So we'll get there first. I really love Canyonlands National Park. Have you guys been there or planning on going there? It's an awesome place. So we'll take a look at the overlook first, then we'll kind of discuss some more stuff about Canyonlands National Park here. And like I said, feel free to mute me, fast forward to if you want to. It's all good. I just feel like this is maybe a cool resource to be out there for people. All right, here we go. First overlook. And then I go down here, and then I think I turn around, which is kind of funny. Beautiful, though. Beautiful day out here. You know, the cool part is that it's even better, right? So, I mean, obviously photographs and video can't really capture the amazingness. I mean, sometimes people like heavily edit stuff or use AI, but I did not do either of those things here. I mean, this is just raw footage from the camera. Or I guess not raw, but unedited. Just a beautiful landscape. It's so unique. The sky is so big too. I just love it here. If you guys have watched more of my videos, you can. I don't know if you can tell, but I love hiking, and I really love the desert. You know, to be fair, I think I love every eco or climate zone I've ever been to. So there it is, Upheaval Dome. What happened to the dome? So, all right, so I read you the top part already about the mystery. Now there's like those pictures of what happened, right? This is me taking a picture. And of course you can go back and pause it. This is like the first or the second shot, like right in the very, very beginning of the video. So if you want to go back and read it and look at the pictures yourself, of course you can do that. So is it a slow moving salt dome? Now we're headed to the second overlook. So about 300 million years ago, a salty inland sea covered the area, which is just cool by itself. And there's some stuff around here, like in this greater area, that says that a lot of the areas around this southern Utah and Colorado plateau would be the major geologic feature, have been under the sea like more than 10 times, which is absolutely insane. But all right, let's go with this storyline that the National Park Service sign is painting for us. So about 300 million years ago, a salty inland sea covered the area. And then a large basin trapped the sea, which then evaporated, leaving behind thousands of feet of salt. Wind and water deposited more sediment, pushing down on the softer salt layer and causing it to dome upwards. Over time, the salt rose, fracturing and distorting the rock layers in its path. And then lastly, water eroded the salt and overlying sediment, exposing the distorted crater visible today. Okay, so there's the theory about the salt dome. And what about an instantaneous meteorite impact, you say? Well, maybe about 200 million years ago, a meteor hurtled toward Earth. The meteor hit the ground with so much force, it vaporized on impact. The force of the impact fractured the rock, creating a large crater. Rock layers rebounded inward and upward to fill the void, and then erosion exposed the tilted, broken core of the impact site. So what do you guys think? Is it a slow-moving salt dome? Is it an instantaneous meteorite impact? Or is it something that we don't know yet? These are the interesting questions of the Upheaval Dome. I have to be honest with you. I did think about that on this hike like a little bit. I've been here a couple times. I've done this hike at least, I think this is the third time I've been out here in my life. I feel very fortunate for that. And I think about it a little, but I guess to me it's funny, like, cause it's like, oh, the mystery, but cause like in this landscape, I'm always thinking, looking all around me and like, how did any of this happen? Really, not just Upheaval Dome does look different, but it's, I guess I'm kind of more easily entertained even by the more normal stuff, but maybe that's just like, well, it's sandstone and that was created by sand depositing and then hardening over the years. I don't know. Absolutely beautiful. See, but here it's kind of like, am I on the trail? It's like kind of like the path. Just go with the flow. But then you do see, like, something you have to get used to is these cairns. Like, see how there's like a little pile of rocks on the left? You can kind of see that I'm now kind of going towards. Those mark the trail. So those are cairns. And you can imagine if somebody got off trail and built new ones, it could really confuse other people. So try not to do that, even though it's tempting. I know that it's cool to make rock structures. Humans, we're funny creatures. I love hiking. I love going outside. I love being human. I love my fellow humans. But we struggle with just like leaving stuff as it is. We always want to like, oh, let me just build this. Oh, let's like, you build the trail, then the road, then the house, then the. But it's awesome. Don't get me wrong. I love all that we have. I mean, it's so fun. I love technology and I love nature, both really. But it's just an interesting thing. We seem to have a little bit more impact on things than say an ant. But maybe in terms of scale, they have more impact. I'm not sure. So again, now we're just kind of going cairn to cairn over this beautiful slick rock area. And like I said, do keep in mind, I mean, I am a fast hiker, but also, and there was I was like, where do I go? But there's actually a little post there. It might have been hard to see, but there was a little metal post with an arrow kind of pointing where to go. And then you can see there's some steps kind of carved into the slick rock, which is really cool. That's another thing too, that like, if it's your first time visiting an area like this, a lot of the hiking is dramatically different than, for example, like the East Coast Appalachian Mountains or something like that. Cause there's all sorts of cracks and crevices you kind of go into, a little bit more scrambling in some sense. Although if you're like New Hampshire or Maine, there's a lot of stuff like that too, or upstate New York, Adirondacks, which are beautiful. Sorry about that. But it's definitely different. I mean, getting used to the cairns versus like marking on the trees, and a lot of times on slick rock, it's kind of like, where did it go? Or even this last viewpoint, I was kind of like, what? Where I was kind of confused as to where to go, if I'm honest. I think I went to it, but at the end, I don't know. And then I was looking at the map too, the map I had on my phone, and it was kind of pointing me somewhere else. So I think they might have changed it like recently, or just the map that I had was wrong. Not too sure. This is cool though. I like these steps kind of carved into the rock. It's a beautiful shot right there. I should remember to come back here and use that for my thumbnail. So there is still a sign. There's a sign with some arrows, which is really helpful. And it's interesting too, because a lot of times going each different way, like going to or from, it looks really different. So it can be kind of tricky in terms of staying on trail as much as you can. That said, in all these videos, I've kind of been trying to go over the three things that are typically the best to walk on in these areas. So the first one would be like we're on right now, slick rock. There's excuse me, there's minimal vegetation. If you're just on the bare rock surface itself, it's very low impact, which is good. So there'd be that. And then the second one would be sandy washes. So like a dry creek bed, basically. Like a lot of creek beds are dry here. All right, so then it says no trail, but it's like, is that the Overlook, or is that? I think I kind of went up both, but it's up here. This is pretty too. It's kind of cool to go to the top of the dome, and there is like a cairn up here. So I'm like, okay, so I guess this is it. So anyway, slick rock would be one, and then so there's a bunch of dry creek beds, right? So that would be called a wash. A wash is another name for like a dry creek bed. You can, it's at the bottom of canyons. Most people, it's pretty instinctual to see like, okay, this is the bottom of a creek bed. But most creek beds are dry in these areas because they're only really active during like maybe snowmelt early in the spring, or yeah. See, I'm looking at the map. I'm like, is that where I'm supposed to be? I like Gaia GPS. The NPS, that's the app that I use. No sponsorship at all. The Gaia GPS works well, and then the National Park Service site is actually pretty good too. They have an app. Excuse me, not the National Park app that they have is pretty good, and you can download the each park so that when you go, everything's all downloaded. You don't have to worry about service or anything. All right, so here it is, the Upheaval Dome. Anybody else have any different theories for how it occurred? And I guess it is true. It's certainly quite a bit different than everything else around us. And this is why why I am able to hike these trails so fast, because now I'm already done and moved on to the next, basically just headed back, back to the vehicle. Pretty large parking lot here. It's kind of interesting. Like it's a turnaround, and then there are some picnic tables and pit toilets there to utilize, which is nice. Not too many parking spots, but decent amount. You're pretty close to. Oh, and the third surface. Sorry that I'm being kind of all over the place in this video. The third surface you can walk on would be a designated trail, right? So designated trails, slick rock, and then a sandy wash. Other than that, you want to avoid this stuff called cryptobiotic soil, or crypto. A lot of people shorten it as. So crypto kind of looks like dirt with maybe a little bit of texture to it and maybe a little bit of darker color, but you want to stay off of that. It actually takes a super long. You might just look at it and think that's dirt. It's fine, but it actually takes a really long time for it to grow, and it should be avoided. You should really try not to walk on it. All right, so now we're headed back. Sorry about that weird editing. I'm not sure what happened exactly, but basically just take a left, and now we're just headed back. And I am kind of like, where do I go? I was just talking about this, right? And we were just here too, which is kind of funny. But then you see how there's kind of two rows of rocks, like it's kind of a lane, and it's like, that is where to go. So and then you have here the metal posts. So can be tricky, and everything looks the same. I would caution you, if you do choose to go off trail somewhere in a place where it's okay to do so, to be careful, because it can be kind of easier than you'd expect to get lost in these areas. So the Upheaval Dome Trail is in the Island in the Sky district of Canyonlands National Park, and it's fairly close to Moab, Utah. There is one small campground in the park that is currently all first come, first serve. So wouldn't necessarily rely on that, just because there's not that many sites, and it is first come, first serve. So you really have to, I don't know what the best technique is, honestly, to get a site in there. I have camped there once, and it was pretty cool. But there's excellent campsites and a whole bunch more lodging in Moab, Utah, which is maybe like a 40-minute drive or hour drive, something like that, maybe a little more, depending on traffic and how far in the park you are. There's a ton of great hikes up at the Island in the Sky district. And then there's actually 4 separate districts of Canyonlands National Park. So currently we're in Island in the Sky district, but then there is also the Needles district, which is absolutely fantastic. The Maze district, which is extremely remote, and you have to drive like 40 miles or maybe even more down dirt roads and it's very like, even where the dirt road starts is quite remote. So the Maze district, and then lastly the rivers, like the Colorado River and the Green River, go through Canyonlands, and they actually have you can go and see their confluence in the Needles district. There's a trail that goes out, which is it's a pretty cool trail too, that goes out to the confluence of the Green and Colorado River, and you can see them come together. And a lot of people do go rafting and do sort of the raft type activities, if that's something that interests you. So here we are, we're back on the steps here, and climbing some more. Again, I feel like looking at this website, them describing it as, I guess I need to understand better how they define elevation change. Like, I don't know if that's gain. Like, I think it's just the difference between the height of the overlook and the trailhead, maybe. That must be it, because you definitely have to climb more to get to the second overlook, but the elevation change is 114 feet for the second overlook and 115 feet for the first overlook. So I think it's just saying sheer, not taking into account any of the uphill or downhill in between, of which there's a decent amount here. It's not bad, but the whole concept of meteorites is so cool that it said that it vaporized on impact. That's fascinating to me as well. But I guess if something hits something else with enough speed, it would cause so much heat that it would immediately turn to vapor, and then but then does the vapor immediately, or not immediately, but like very soon, fall again, or does it just kind of go into the air? I don't know. It's kind of an interesting chemistry or experiment, I guess. Just let me get a big meteorite and smash into somewhere in southern Utah safely, and then I'll know. But I don't know. All this stuff's pretty fascinating. I've spent time researching a lot of things. I do really like geology, but yeah, see, and there's a cairn over to the right, but then there's stairs built, so it's kind of like, I don't know if I went that way. Yeah, I must have gone down that way too. But to be fair, it can be a little tricky, like following the trail. Even me watching the video, I'm like, which way is which, kind of. But also, I do really have a lot of respect for all of the National Park Service having to manage these beautiful resources, because it's a tough balance, right? You don't want to have you don't want to paint huge spray paint, like follow this line on all the slick rock. I mean, that's one option, I suppose, but it kind of takes away from the wilderness experience. But you want to be careful, because if you have it too much towards that super wilderness experience where there's no markings, then it can be really easy to get off trail, and not only to get lost, but also trample that, the crypto and all that stuff. I'm kind of embarrassed how much I'm looking at my phone here. Sorry about that, you guys. The thing, I mean, one of my favorite parts of really all these, they have the national parks in Utah. You have Arches, Canyonlands, Capitol Reef, Bryce, and Zion. Is that they're all like around every corner. It's kind of like, oh, what's that? Like, oh, what's that? There's so many opportunities for photos or exploration, or just to kind of see more, or just to wonder about the landscape. There's so many cool things. I love it. And it's continuous, I mean, I suppose you could make that argument too. Like, I'm trying to think, if my more forested videos, am I going to be saying that exactly? Like, I just love the forest and every tree is awesome. And it is kind of true. It's good to look at things in a positive light. You might think I'm over the top, but it's just, nature is wonderful and beautiful, and I feel so lucky every time I get to go out and do it. So might as well own it. I think I passed those people before on the way out too. So, hello. People tend to be pretty nice in the backcountry. I feel like the amount of time and the friendliness factor, like, not this isn't an entirely like true theory, but pretty true. Like, the farther you get out, the more friendly you are. Like, if you just run into somebody who you never have seen before in your life, like in the middle of nowhere, you're likely to stop and chat for a little bit and hang out. Or even just and then even on trails like this, or ones that are a little more crowded, people will say hi. Maybe in the super crowded ones, not so much, but even then, like a little bit. Like, if you say hi to people, they'll almost always say hi back. I really appreciate that. It's nice to spread some positivity, and that's not something that I think always occurs in, maybe in a more urban setting. Do you have the same experience, or am I being pessimistic? Obviously, there's friendly people everywhere, but nature seems to bring people together pretty well. It's a nice way to common bond. I suppose what's the new version of that, like social media or something, and it's like, yeah, I don't know. I guess I feel like there are some benefits to social media. Like, I've found that I can keep in touch, or at least like vaguely in touch with folks I've met a long time ago, and then maybe as a result, like, hang out with them if I'm in a certain area. Like, if they move to somewhere and I'm in that location, it's much easier to make that connection than it would be otherwise. So I like that aspect. However, and there's other positive aspects as well. But I also find that, like, and I think a lot of people find this, the anonymity of the internet it makes it like easier for people to make maybe less nice comments, or things that they wouldn't necessarily say to someone if they were right in front of them, and I think that creates, like, I don't know, not the best culture necessarily. Whereas outdoors, we're hanging out, saying what's up to each other. Life is good. There's a state park right next to the Island in the Sky district of Canyonlands National Park, called Dead Horse Point State Park. The view from there is astounding, and there are campsites there that you can reserve online. So consider that. There are additional fees though. Like, it does cost money to get into Canyonlands National Park at the entrance station, and there's a different fee. It's like it's not included with the fee, so keep that in mind. And if you've never been to this area before, and this is the first video you're watching, it is just a mecca. Like, if for mountain biking, for river sports, for rock climbing, for hiking, for backpacking, for all sorts of, like, motorized activities, like 4x4 roads, and side by sides and ATVs and stuff like that. This whole area is quite the mecca. Obviously, in this video, we are just covering the hiking, and just really just specifically about the Upheaval Dome Trail, but there's tons of cool stuff to do. Moab's an incredible place. As I mentioned, though, spring and fall are really the best. And it's never really like weather's pretty good here a lot of times, but also, oh man, you can get unexpected. Like in the spring, it can be freezing, it can be hot. Same thing in the fall. It can be freezing, it can be hot. Thunderstorms scare me a little bit when I'm out here because I feel like a lot of times it's not very challenging in a lot of instances to be one of the taller things around, like especially like even just look right now, we're taller than almost all the vegetation. I mean, we're coming downhill, but see, trails get a little bit confusing towards the end. Like this whole family is kind of like there's 3 or 4 different trails, so be careful. I think most people try their best. Like, I don't think they're being malicious, and I know I'm not. It is easy sometimes just to go off the trail, so it's really important to try to pay as much attention as you can, and I try to too. But like I said, sometimes it's just almost not impossible, but it's like if you miss one thing, and it's like, yeah, a lot of times there are like to the left right there, or to the right there, there's kind of big branches blocking it, but sometimes it's a dead tree, and you're like, and you are supposed to go over it. So in a lot of instances it is clear, but then in other instances like I find myself thinking like, oh, should I get. So we all just have to do our best to preserve this for future generations. And if you notice, there was not a single, I mean, at least I didn't see. Hopefully I would have picked it up if I saw it, but no garbage out here. Let's keep it that way. I didn't see any toilet paper. Nobody likes to see the Charmin bloom out there. Wildflowers are pretty enough by themselves. We don't need another species of toilet paper. Like, please pack all that stuff out and go way off trail if you have to go to the bathroom. So you can now at this point we're approaching the end of the hike. You can kind of get a better view. Kind of a cool place. I like the trailhead here. I like that there's, like I said, there's picnic tables, there's shaded areas, there's several pit toilets. It's like a luxurious trailhead for being in the wilderness. That's another thing I always find interesting too. Like, what is your level of comfort, right? Like I'm saying, I'm using the word, that's why I was laughing. I'm using the word luxurious to define picnic tables and a couple of pit toilets and some shade, but it's good. That is good versus other people, I think, who might have a slightly different version of what luxurious is to them. So I had an awesome hike. Hopefully you guys did too. Thank you so much for joining me here this wonderful day. And then this right here, the left and the right. That's the loop. I always forget the name of it. Syncline loop, Syncline trail. So it's really close to the start of it. We missed it when we were going the other way. I was too chatty. Yeah, so you can see there's several picnic tables with shaded areas. So pretty cool day use area. But again, also a bit challenging for parking sometimes here if you're here during more peak times. Other times you just drive right up and get a spot. So keep that in mind. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. Feel free to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this or want to see other videos. Any comments or feedback you have would be appreciated. And I hope you have the most wonderful of days. And hope you're able to make it here, or if not, that you enjoyed the video.